Welcome into Jags AM. I'm Kainani Stevens. Brian Sexton and John Oehser are with me today as we get ready for OTAs next week. Rookie minicamp is behind us, and we didn't learn a whole lot, but it is always nice to have people back in the building and get ready for things to get going this season. Our first big thing today is Pro Football 101, a little bit of a teaching theme here today, as the rookies came to the building for the first time last week and got to try to figure out exactly how this whole pro thing goes.
Now they're with an NFL club. You know, right now they're just rookies. And so come Monday, when everybody starts walking in here, you know, and they start seeing all the guys, you know, it makes an impact on them. And, you know, there are a lot of these guys, you know, obviously they were starters in college, and now they're gonna have to take backup roles, and they're gonna compete for starting positions, or at least compete for that backup spot, and it changes just a little bit for them. So this weekend, though, from the meetings to the on-the-field stuff, is really going to prepare them for the next, 5 weeks, I guess, that we're here.
Brian, we talked a little bit about this last week. Obviously, they've played big-time football. These are high-level players in college, but getting to the NFL is a little bit different.
Yeah, last weekend, Kai, the process took center stage. Where you meet, where you eat, where you walk to get to the locker room, all of that stuff. This week, as they get onto the field, even though they're not competing yet, it's about the pros. And they're going to see big, strong, and fast. They're going to see a different level of competition because these are grown men and they are highly paid, and this is about their livelihood. So that's an interesting transition year to year from the college kids who are celebrated, who are seen as the big men on campus, and then they put their feet here and have to figure it all out, John.
Yeah, I laughed. I saw a story over the weekend that said some Jaguars rookie was bawling out at the rookie game. And I wondered how, because there was no one-on-ones and there was no 7-on-7, so I guess they were bawling out running routes. And I mean, people have to write the stories. I'm not necessarily criticizing the story, but there's a misconception about what rookie minicamp is. Doug said it best. They are trying to get the rookies to the point where yesterday, when the veterans got here and the rookies walked in, that the rookies weren't 8 steps behind and slowing things down. They wanted to give them a chance to compete, and that's what last weekend was.
Balling out. We'll get there soon, John, I promise. Our second big thing this week today is new curriculum, because they're back in school. They got to learn a lot of new things, and that goes for some of the vets as well. Because of new defensive coordinator and his staff, there is a bit of learning curve for the players.
I mean, it's just a different scheme, right? It's a different scheme, and you're switching gears a little bit from that 3-4 mode to kind of 4-down mode, and even though you spend so much time in 4-down defense a lot anyway, and I think some of the techniques are going to be a little different. Obviously, there's learning with the verbiage and terminology. Linebacker, the fits, and just the way, what I've seen so far, the way the coaches have coached them, and some of the drill work that they're doing on the field.
John, we're making a lot about this scheme being totally different than last year. How difficult is this going to be to pick up for the defense?
Well, I mean, it's new. They're pro football players, so I anticipate them being able to pick it up. The DBs, the corners will play more press man. It's not like they've never done that before in their lives. They're cornerbacks, and they know how to play football. So it's a transition. I don't think it should be a transition that come week one, they have no idea what they're doing, but they have to work on it all offseason.
A lot of these guys have played together before, and that's where the communication comes, right? Guys like Josh Allen looking to the back end and looking at a safety and saying, hey, Cisco, this is where we do this. The terminology will come, and there are some new faces out there, Ronald Darby, Eric Armstead. But for the most part, these guys are in the locker room and in the meeting rooms and on the plane and the bus together, and they'll figure out how to communicate the new verbiage because they know how to communicate with one another.
Our final big thing today is going to be homework complete. At the end of last season, GM Trent Baalke said he wanted this team to get bigger, faster, and more physical. And head coach Doug Peterson addressed some of those new additions, both from the draft and also free agency.
I think, number one, we've gotten a bigger, right? Just physically bigger, right? With some of the draft picks and undrafted guys, and even some of our players coming back, we've gotten bigger. I think speed, we've gotten a tick faster. Obviously we know Brian's speed as a wide receiver, and some of the DBs now, they've gotten faster. And then when we put the pads on in July and August, we'll see where we are physically.
We got 2 out of 3 checked off. Brian, when you look at this, is how much of this is going to be mentality and when they go into training camp and kind of getting that, now that they are bigger, faster, stronger, if you want to put it that way, to be more physical and use that as a pro?
Well, every coach wants to be bigger, faster, stronger, and more physical every year. But you hit on the key word there, Kai, and that's the mentality. And last year, they just didn't play big in big games. I think it's a mindset. I'm not sure whether it's preparation. I don't know that you have to be bigger to play better. But to me, I want to see this team convert from the potential to the actual, which they didn't do in the biggest games last year. And so you say, well, you're bigger and you're stronger with Eric Armstead. Well, he also brings a certain mentality from a championship caliber club. Same thing with Ronald Darby out on the edge. He played in a Super Bowl. So these are guys that bring the mental side of the game into your locker room, and you don't quantify that on a chart. You just understand it by the way that they prepare and the way that they play.
Yeah, I think Doug said it best also last week. Look, everybody in the NFL is big and strong, and they play physically. I think more than anything, the theme of the offseason, yes, they're a little bigger. I think they may be a little faster at wide receiver, but they wanted to be more of a team that in the last 5 games of the season, when you had to have a win, they just figured out a way, and maybe you couldn't even point to it after the game and say why they won, but that they could take a game by the throat. So I think Doug, more than anything, would like a team that's, that's the intangible you want. I'm going to grab it and take over, and maybe you roar a little bit around here, Kai.
Little rawr. Little rawr. I'm dressed for it, so it's
I
perfect.
was just about to say, between your dress, Kai, and that roar, we are certainly in costume today.
Let's do it. Stay with us after the break. More roaring, more rawring. We're going to hear from some of the new players here in Jacksonville.
Jaguars fans are gearing up and saving big at Fanatics.com, the world's largest collection of officially licensed fan gear from all the leagues, teams, and Jaguars players you love. Shop the most trusted brands, exclusive designs by Fanatics, and autographed collectibles from today's biggest stars. Join Fanatics Rewards today and earn fan cash on every purchase. Shop now and get today's special offer. Fanatics.com, officially licensed everything.
As the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Publix is helping fans gear up for game day with the limited-time Jaguars sub. Piled high with hot deli chicken tenders, boar's head bacon, cheddar cheese, coleslaw, and barbecue mayonnaise on a white sub roll. The Jaguars sub is an easy, delicious meal for any fan. Make it an ultimate game day by ordering the Jaguars sub online for in-store pickup. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure.
And that's a Magellan first down.
Move the freight, move the freight, move the freight.
Would you like to control your own income? Work at Magellan Transport, voted the coolest office space in Duval. Bring your talents and let your career flourish. Visit their website at MagellanLogistics.com and apply online. Trust service. Trust Magellan.
Move the freight, moves the freight. Magellan Transportation voted the coolest office space in Jacksonville. You can apply online at www.magellanlogistics.com. Welcome back to Jags AM this morning. As we had minicamp last week, I know that's your favorite activity of the year, you guys, but we do have OTAs coming up, which is exciting to get everybody back in the building and kind of feels a little bit more like football. And then training camp is here, which that's a whole other thing. So let's talk a little bit about minicamp. We got to see some of these rookies for the very first time. Obviously, Brian Thomas, the first-round pick, was out there running routes, probably killing it, as they would say. John probably has some other verbiage.
Balling out.
Balling out. There we go.
And Brian Thomas did look, in minicamp, you want guys to look the part. Mason Smith looked bigger than everybody else and looked more physical than everybody else. And Brian Thomas looked faster and looked like he was touched by God more than anybody else on the field in terms of playing that position. Jarvis Landry, who was in for a tryout, said he He's got elite talent. You can see it. He's quicker, catches the ball cleaner, all those things that you want to see a guy when he's running routes on air. So, Brian, you've heard the same analogy I've heard for years. What you don't want is the GM and scouts walking out going,
Yep.
and I didn't sense you saw any of that. We'll see more this week.
When you look at him, there's no chance that you could be anything other than enthused. Just his length stands out to me. And when you see a shot of his legs, how long his legs are. Look the part, now get in and learn it and be ready to go so that you can make a contribution in training camp.
Play the part for sure. You mentioned Mason Smith, John. He's one of those, that second round pick for us that physically is one of those players that Trent Baalke is very excited to get out here. He spoke after practice a little bit and about what he's most excited about.
I've always been accustomed to hard work, man. Just having to see my mother, you know, she's a family pediatrician doctor, seeing her work, you know, early mornings, long nights, seeing my father work in the oil field for 30 plus years, man. I'm accustomed to it. So, you know, I never really shied away, no matter what I ever went through, man. And, you know, the cream always rises to the crop. The cream always rises to the top, man. And, you know, I'm just keep my head down and keep working and continue to progress, man. That's all I can think of.
Hard worker, exactly what you want to hear, especially going into OTAs and training camp around the corner. They're banking a lot on him kind of rebounding from that injury that he suffered when he had an ACL tear. He played last year, wasn't quite all the way back, but they're hoping now that he's fully recovered, we'll see a different player.
When you look at him, you see a guy that you want on your team. And then when you hear him talk about mother being a pediatrician, dad working in the oil fields, which we all know is a tough, rough, blue-collar job, it gives you a lot of background information on how the kid was raised. And so it gives you a lot of opportunity, a lot of hope that he's going to come in here and apply that towards being who he was before the injury in 2022.
Yeah, there's been some buzz. Oh, wow, why'd they pick that guy? He was hurt in college. Look, the ACL, it happened in early 2022. The common comeback from that is difficulty coming back first year, maybe a little slow, start to come out of it, and then by the second year after an ACL, anybody will tell you, a young guy below the age of about 25 or 26, there's no reason in the world this day and age they don't return to full potential. He was dominant when he was a freshman, and you can see the size, all that stuff. To me, this, you know, is it the turning point of the draft? Probably. I mean, it's probably what the draft, it can turn the draft either into great, or if he's not good, it's but all second round picks are sort of a crapshoot. If you get a guy who you think might be dominant there, nothing wrong with the pick on that front to me.
Might as well risk it, of course. And as he's mentioned, obviously a hard worker. And I think now he trusts that. I think he mentioned earlier that kind of that trust factor. You're not sure if your knee's going to give. So now that he has that back, hopefully he'll be able to get back to his freshman year form. We also heard from his former defensive coordinator, now linebacker coach here, Matt House. He was at LSU. Of course, 3 picks from LSU coming here. But Matt House actually weighed in a little bit on Brian Thomas because going up against him in practice every day was certainly difficult.
Yeah, BT's got, really good length, obviously elite speed. He's a matchup problem, and he can go up and get the ball. So, you know, in particular, last year at LSU when we were DB short, he was tough matchup.
John, I know we haven't seen a ton from Brian Thomas yet, but it's exciting to see that kind of have that option for Trevor, and also a wide receiver that can maybe grow with Trevor a little bit, right? Like, he's had some veteran presence, but now a younger player that's drafted here, he'll be here for the next however many years to grow with him.
Yeah, he comes into a nice situation. He doesn't have to be the best receiver immediately. Christian Kirk's perfectly capable of being that. He doesn't have to be the go-to guy. Evan Ingram's perfectly capable of doing that. So he can immediately give the team a wrinkle and have time to develop. I've said many times since he got drafted, before the draft, there were 3 elite receivers, and out of the rest of them, the analysts thought that he had the best chance to eventually develop into one. Doesn't mean he's going to be it immediately. He can give them, Brian, deep threat, jump ball threat while he's developing into an overall player.
Well, I shared this after the draft, but Cortez Hankton, who was an undrafted rookie here back in 2003, is his position coach, or was his position coach and offensive coordinator at LSU, told me he's the most physically gifted receiver he's ever coached. And he obviously coached at Georgia before LSU, so that tells you the caliber of athletes that he's accustomed to. Said he's one of my guys, guy who'll get after it, but physically gifted in a way that you have difficulty drawing it up. It just shows up like that.
And again, it's routes on air,
sure.
But he just makes everything look easy. I mean, things that are hard for other players trying to make the NFL, he does without even thinking about it.
Well, and something that Matt House said is that he's a difficult matchup, and we're a matchup league where you're trying to create mismatches. It's different than in college football. So, they're going to find that other teams are going to find that it's tough to have a corner who is as big and long as he is. And if he's as fast and physical as we've heard, Kai, it'll be a great pick.
Excited to see him and Trevor kind of figure it out and get going. That'll be definitely fun to see. And also, we should mention in the wide receiver room, Jarvis Landry in for a tryout. So he was part of that rookie minicamp. He missed last year due to injury, but he's been around for quite some time. And he talked a little bit about why it was important for him and just coming back to football.
It was stressful. It was stressful. I learned a lot about the man, and getting healthy and things like that, spending more time with family, kept me grounded. I had a good support system, but it's always good to be back out here.
John, what do we see from Juice out there? Because obviously Jarvis Landry's been around, he's done it for a while, he was out with injury, and to kind of come back with that appreciation, but also the skill set he has.
You could tell who the veteran was. He was precise. To me, he looked quick, particularly for his age. I don't necessarily know that they brought him in thinking we have to sign him immediately in order to have him on the team. I think they wanted to give him the opportunity. They wanted to see what it was. And then perhaps as time moves on, now you know a little bit more about a guy. Doug said beforehand, look, it's a tryout, and that's what it is. Would you feel fine putting Jarvis Landry in an NFL game right now and having him get you through a couple of weeks where somebody else isn't performing for you, isn't available? Sure. Is he a frontline starter? I'm not sure anybody thinks that right now.
It's a young man's game, and it's hard for guys who have been to 5 Pro Bowls to let go. And clearly, he has decided he's not ready to let this one go. So it made sense for him to come. And I would think that at some point later in the season, if they don't like any of the 5 undrafted rookies that they signed, right? They stacked up on these guys for camp. And you have an injury like last year with Zay Jones, right? Where you were lacking any sort of significant depth at that position. And it hurt the passing game. Well, then you've got a guy on speed dial, if he's not anywhere else, that you can go and bring in, and you have a book on him now. But they went heavy in the paint on wide receiver.
They're going for it.
And
absolutely.
So those young guys come in as developmental guys, and really that's where the roster spots or the practice squad spots are in Jacksonville for receivers, with that room as expensive and as draft capital has been put into it.
And Jarvis also made the comment, he has to figure out if this is something he wants to do,
sure,
and completely commit to it. I'm obviously not privy to those conversations, but at this stage of careers, that's the verbiage you hear is and I say, oh my goodness, I have to go get this. It's I have to find the right fit, have to decide this is what I want to do. So that's what a tryout means.
Yeah. Well, if you didn't swing this year, you probably couldn't next, right? Being 1 year out, 2 years out, not as many opportunities for those guys.
We've also seen that before, though. Obviously, veteran players coming in around training camp, getting into training camp, maybe like this is kind of going a couple games in and like figuring out this is kind of the end of things. So whether that'll be the situation for him or whether things will work out and he'll get picked up either here or somewhere else remains to be seen. Stay with us here on Jags AM, though. Coming up, we're going to go over some Ozone mailbag questions and get them answered for you.
For generations, hard-working people have relied on Ford F-Series trucks to help grow businesses, communities, families. A legacy of capability and technology that has made Ford F-Series America's best-selling trucks 47 years straight. This is the next generation of Built Ford Tough. Based on 1977 to 2023 calendar year total sales.
Hi, this is Walker Little from the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you need to make room to watch football in your home or need a place to park your boat or RV, store it at Atlantic Self Storage, the official storage partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Over 50 locations in Northeast Florida, free 24-hour access, month-to-month leases. They make storage easy. Go to AtlanticSelfStorage.com or call 877-WE-STORE to find out why they're Jacksonville's #1 pick for storage.
The Jaguars bring performance, strength, and passion to every play. And you'll find the same when you bank with EverBank. Open an EverBank Performance Savings account and score serious savings. See what you could earn at everbank.com/Jaguars. EverBank, advantage you. Member FDIC and the official bank of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
With all the latest Jags style. Shop now. Get today's special offer at Fanatics.com. It's officially licensed everything.
This broadcast is Ozone friendly.
Ozone rolling in. We're going to get our questions answered by John. He's so wise. He has all of that wisdom in there, in that nugget up top. Thank you for sharing with us, John.
No problem, Ty.
You don't sense any sarcasm there.
Let's check in with Mike from Azores. He has a question about Gabe Davis's injury that Doug alluded to in his press conference last week. He says, is Gabe Davis still recovering from an injury that he suffered while he was still with the Buffalo Bills? Why would, when you sign a free agent, isn't it pending passing a physical? Did the Jags not check Gabe out physically? Why wouldn't you disclose the injury at that time? A lot of questions, more than one question in this. Or is this a new injury that no one wants to take the blame for? I'm confused.
Well, Mike came in kind of hot.
Yes.
Gabe Davis was hurt in the last game of the regular season last year and didn't play in the playoffs. They knew it. I don't think it's as uncommon as perhaps Mike believed. And they knew this was going to be the situation coming in. He's a veteran. Yes, they have an idea where the knee injury is. It wasn't disclosed because there was no
reason to.
Nothing to disclose. So I anticipate that he'll be ready to go in training camp. And Darius Williams, first year here, a couple years back, remember, didn't participate until I think training camp. It's pretty common.
Eric Armstead as well,
Sure,
coming back from injury, so it's very common. Let's check in with.
As I said to Mike, breathe. It's May.
It's okay.
We're good.
It's okay. We're getting a little amped up. All right, Sean from Oakleaf wanted to know, when will be the first opportunity for the Jaguars to practice that new kickoff rule simulating game conditions, obviously because they can't go against each other right now at this stage of practice.
They'll get a chance to simulate it, and there's different levels they can do. In OTAs, they can do everything except hit each other while doing it. In training camp, they can get helmets on and actually hit each other while doing it, and then you can really simulate it in a preseason game. This one, to me, Brian, feels like they're going to have some theories on how it's going to look. Everybody's going to have their approach, and then starting in preseason is when you're going to see what the league always does, which is, hey, this guy's doing this, and start copying it. It will homogenize once the preseason games start.
Well, yeah, you have 32 different special teams coordinators, 64 if you count their assistant special teams coordinator.
And then 96 if you count all the other assistants.
Right. And they all have different ideas, and they've collaborated to help the league come to the conclusion of what the rule could be. But everybody's going to have a different spin on it. So it'll be interesting to see a month or two into the season who's really good at it.
But it was an interesting question because there has been a lot of conversation. As soon as this thing came into being, remember, it wasn't put in until the owners' meetings. Yeah. So they really didn't attack free agency that much with this thing in mind. So all of a sudden the draft becomes a thing, and they have to talk amongst themselves and figure out what everybody else is doing. I'm sure different special teams coaches are talking to each other, but then not giving away too much of what they're going to do. So it's going to be an interesting rule change.
I'm excited about it because
we all should be.
The kickoffs went away, and this is a clever, innovative way to bring it back. And if this goes well, maybe they'll come up with the way that the XFL does the onside kick, which is 4th and 10 from your 25, high risk. Because onside kicks have gone away too. And that was always a fun part of the game when games got close. Hopefully this leads to something like that.
We'll have to see how things go, but I am excited to see it in game action for sure. Our final question for you, John, a little bit broader of a question from Bob in Bobsville, of course. Confidence is key, particularly in the NFL. Confidence grows through success, but even the most confident player can be shaken by too many failures. If it takes a season to get used to the NFL and meaningfully contribute, why do so many teams put rookies or young players in situations in which they're likely to fail?
Well, this was sort of a quarterback-based question, but I think it sort of applies to other positions as well. Yeah, you would love, I think most teams, most coaches would tell you, most rookies, it would be great if they had a year to develop. And realistically, that's sort of what happens. Everybody wants to see rookies contribute immediately, and some do. But for the most part, if there's 350 players in the rookie class, you're going to get a few that make a huge impact. Most of them are really ready to be big-time players or, real contributions at the end of a season. Why don't they wait? Because it's a win-now league.
Well, and
sometimes you don't have the luxury, right?
Throw way back. The salary cap changed the game, right? It used to be you bring guys in and they could play behind an established veteran. But now with as much money is committed to players, you can't keep all your veterans. Free agency takes them away. And so now in the last 30 years since free agency has become a really important part of building a team, they need rookies to step in because they lose guys.
And the dynamic has become, the way it's set up now, it's necessary, but it also causes way too much early criticism of a lot of young players. Now the development that used to take place sort of behind the scenes takes place as rookies. Yep. So whenever there's a mistake, it's the worst. He's the worst player I've ever seen.
Right.
When in reality, a lot of these guys, I always go back to Reggie Wayne, who played 7 games as a rookie, did not give any indication that he was going to be good. And then by his 3rd or 4th year, he's a Pro Bowler. He might be in the Hall of Fame. Reggie wasn't a bad player as a rookie. He was a young player who needed some more time. So that we now get to watch the rough draft, and it can be rough on these guys when they're criticized for it.
Certainly is. It's not an easy thing, and taking that time to get used to the NFL. As we're seeing those rookies get in the building this week, their first week kind of practicing off-season with some of the vet players, so we'll get to see what that looks like in OTAs. Stay with us on Jags 9 AM. We'll be right here after the break.
Since 2014, there's been only one official home builder of the Jaguars, Dreamfinders Homes. With quality-built homes and a speedy move-in process, we're in 20-plus communities in the best locations across Northeast Florida. Dreamfinders Homes is everywhere you want to live. So get off the sidelines, Jags fans, and get into the game. Let Dreamfinders help you navigate your home purchase and offer great interest rates. Visit dreamfindershomes.com for all your move-in ready homes and step up your game.
With the first pick in the 2024 draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Duck Duck Rooter, the #1 plumbing, septic, and underground utility contractor in Florida.
Congratulations, Duck Duck Rooter. So tell us, how does it feel to be picked #1?
Duck Duck Rooter is a proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. When you need help with any plumbing or septic issue, just give us a call and relax. We'll send one of our first-round draft picks to get the job done right. DuckDuckRooter.com. That's DuckDuckRooter.com.
Hello, I'm Dan Fields, and we have some great news. Fields has the vehicle you want, in stock, priced right, and ready for delivery.
Fields Auto Group is Jacksonville's luxury automotive destination for Cadillac, Jaguar, Land Rover, Lexus, Mercedes-Benz, and Porsche. Inventory is back and available for immediate delivery.
And every Fields customer can take advantage of our Fields Amenities program with complimentary loaners, car washes, and our cafes. You deserve the best.
Stop by today or go to fieldsauto.com.
Welcome back into Jags AM here as we're getting ready for OTAs next week and kind of finally getting back into football a little bit. I did want to bring back our Jags AM offseason to-do list because I started this a couple months ago. This is just what we discussed on Jags AM. Some things we wanted to go over because I do want to give them credit. We can check a couple things off. I'm a list person. I have the Post-its, all this, so I wanted to keep track of things. So we got Josh Allen figured out. That was the big #1 thing for me for sure. Addressing the O-line issues, we'll have to see how this ends up, but they seem to have addressed it as much as they're going to address it. They have a new center in the building, signing Ezra Cleveland long-term, and whatever they're going to try to do with some of the backups in terms of rookies and what they had last year in Cooper Hodges. Adding some depth on defense. We did see some additions there, some big additions there. And then what I have left is pay Trevor ? As we saw that deal with Jared Goff got done yesterday. So maybe now Trevor's looking at that, maybe coming up in the next week, month, however many days. And then getting that new defense up to speed with their new defensive staff and defensive coordinator. You guys, if you want anything on the list, let me know. You know, I love to stay organized.
No, so far so good, and I think both things.
Me too.
Getting new defense up to speed is going to happen. That's what they're going to be doing the next few months. I'd be surprised if Trevor doesn't get done before the season, but we'll see.
I keep hearing that they're working at it and that it's likely to happen, but no date.
Sure. Well, we'll be keeping an eye and our ears open for that as well. Next week, OTAs, and we'll get that schedule release that's coming out on Wednesday. So lots to talk about. Make sure you check in with us next week here on Jags AM.